Hello, Misfits. This is Kate. In case you haven't heard, Kevin and I are preparing to do our first live show in October. We're really excited and also a little stressed. We want to give all of you planning to attend a banger of an evening. So while we're hard at work putting the live event together, please enjoy this episode that originally aired on our Patreon. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, don't worry, you've got a new episode coming your way later this week. Enjoy. Hello, Misfit Murderinos. This is Kate.
And this is Kevin.
Welcome to Horrorwood.
Horrorwood.
Patronian style.
Patreon.
I like your shirt. I thought you were going to give me one.
Oh, shit. I keep forgetting to bring it to you. There's a whole bag of them in my apartment because after the Pride Parade, Sweet Tarts, Ferrara Candy Company, which is what my organization was marching with, they'd left all their extra T-shirts.
Yeah.
And so I just took them.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why? I don't want to I don't want to waste these.
Sure.
We'll use them. I'll bring you one, I promise.
That's fine. It's fine. I
sent
do
my
like
friend
it.
Eric a couple in the he saw them and he was like, can you send me a couple? So I sent a couple to San Jose, but
Nice.
Sweet Tarts.
Sweet Tarts Pride.
Yum.
Okay, we're just going to go right into this.
Yeah.
This is a Patronian episode, so it's a little looser.
Loosey-goosey.
Loosey-goosey. It's an old-timey one, kind of old-timey. And
it's an
I just hit my mic.
old maiden type of story. Sorry, I'm not going to do that again.
I do keep thinking about that, though. I've said it
so
multiple
good?
times.
It's so good. Tiffany Pollard is a national treasure.
treasure.
Even abroad.
So this one is about a guy from back in the 30s and 40s.
Wow.
Today we are talking about the mysterious murder of David Bacon. Although that wasn't his given name.
Oh, okay.
He was born Gaspar Griswold Bacon Jr.
Now, that's a name.
I love that name.
Gaspar
Griswold. Yes.
Bacon Jr.
Yes, it sounds like he's in Bridgerton.
It sounds like a sandwich, like that you would get at like a fast food joint.
I'll take the Gaspar Griswold Bacon Jr.
Yes.
There it is. With fries. He was an actor back in the 1930s and 40s, but his career ended right as it was starting off.
It seems like that's a theme with some of these stories.
Kind of. We are a true crime podcast, so
it's always like they were just starting out and bright lights and future ahead, but then
tragedy.
He
was murdered in 1943 when he was just 29 years old.
Damn, that's young.
And maybe even had a premonition about his death?
Oh my
Question
God.
mark?
Do you ever have premonitions, Kate? We've never talked about it.
I don't know if I would call them a premonition, but just this unrelenting fear that I'm going to be killed every time I step out my front door.
I hear that, and I understand that.
Okay. Because I'm told that that's not something you should have to think about every single day.
I mean, in these days, though, we have to. I was always taught by my parents, if you have a bad feeling about something,
trust it,
and don't do whatever it is that.
Yeah, follow your instincts.
Follow your intuition. I mean, but then when you have seriously crippling anxiety.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay, I mean, hey. I'm on medication.
I am too, and I actually just upped my dosage.
Hey, yay! On to better coverage.
Hey.
I don't know. But no, I mean, I was always taught, like, trust your gut.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone should trust their gut. Gaspar Griswold Bacon Jr. was born on March 24th, 1914 in Barnstable, Massachusetts, which is a town on Cape Cod. He had an older brother named William and a younger brother named Robert. It's interesting that the older brother wasn't Junior. He was William. It was the middle brother that became Gaspar Jr.
That became Junior.
I thought that was strange. Right?
Is the father
Gaspar
Senior?
Yeah.
So then they only gave the one kid the junior title.
Mm-hmm.
Strange.
To say he was born into privilege would be an understatement.
Oh, damn.
His parents were Priscilla Toland and, of course, Gaspar Griswold Bacon Sr.
I am obsessed with these names.
I
and
love
of
the
course,
names.
Priscilla.
Priscilla Toland
is such like a classy name.
You don't
know what I mean?
meet a lot of Priscillas.
You don't. I had a cat named Priscilla.
Yeah, you did.
And she was gray and beautiful.
Was she sassy?
I think she was the one that killed the bird that I told you that story about.
Oh. This took a dark turn before I even got to the murder. So let's go on.
We called her Prissy for short.
They had some money. They were one of the Boston Brahmin families, which were essentially Boston's elite. Other Brahmin families included that of Samuel Adams, Calvin Coolidge, T.S. Eliot, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Ralph Waldo Emerson. So you get the idea.
Oh.
Very prominent families in New England. Brahmin families were typically very wealthy, politically conservative, white, and often associated with Harvard University.
I want to be like, ooh, but I also kind of want to be like, boo, because you know that these people were probably shitheads.
Probably.
Take all their wealth to their pyramids.
Their pyramid schemes. That was dumb. Mine was dumb.
No, I liked it, Kate.
Okay, thank you.
Go with your instincts.
Thank you. I will. Gaspar Sr. got his undergrad degree from Harvard, then went on to graduate from Harvard Law, just like Elle Woods.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I'm not going to sing. Don't ever. What?
Okay, but I liked that you were on it.
I love that movie.
Eventually, he went on to serve on the board of overseers at Harvard.
Ooh. Overseers.
It feels very Harry Potter.
They all wear robes and worship some kind of demon.
Maybe. Pazuzu.
Pazuzu.
Gaspar Sr. was heavily involved in politics. He served as the president of the Massachusetts Senate, and then when that term ended, he became the lieutenant governor of Massachusetts.
Damn.
His father was J.P. Morgan's chief lieutenant, as in J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. He served as Teddy Roosevelt's Secretary of State and was the U.S. ambassador to France during the Taft administration. Gaspar Sr.'s brother was a congressman and lawyer. The attitude within the Brahmin families was that you were the best and you were expected to act like it.
Gross. Toxic masculinity out the wazoo.
Very. We're talking white dudes who hold all the power politically, financially.
Ugh, golf carts, vodka, Saturday mornings.
Saturday mornings. Young men were expected to attend the same prep schools and colleges that their dad attended and his dad before him. The males were members of private clubs. Women were basically there to inherit their family's money and to marry an equally wealthy guy because it's the early 1900s.
Like shit, I'm sure.
Probably. Women weren't even allowed to enroll as students at Harvard yet.
Boo.
Yeah.
No.
Young men were expected to follow in their father's footsteps in terms of career. They were to assume leadership roles within their communities. Any kind of scandal, quote unquote, was unacceptable. Divorce was out of the question.
God forbid.
It all sounds like a real drag, to be honest. Gaspar Jr. enjoyed all the privileges his family's position afforded him, which included attending a boarding prep school called Deerfield Academy in Massachusetts. They would summer on Cape Cod in a town called Woods Hole. You know you're rich when you use summer as a verb.
Oh, that's a good point, Kate.
That's the defining.
I'm going to summer on an ocean cruise.
I knew that was going to come up at some point.
Sorry.
I've probably said it at least 7 times since we recorded that episode.
I said it to my cats last night when I left the room.
It was during these summers that Gaspar Jr. got involved with a theatrical troupe known as the University Players, which was made up of undergrad students from Harvard, Vassar, and Princeton.
Every time someone says Vassar, it makes me think of the German word for water, which is Wasser.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that, but I'm pretending I did.
I just had that thought.
He befriended a couple of unknown actors at the time, Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, shut up. That's crazy.
Yeah, they were not known. They were just a couple
of actors hanging out and doing plays.
Doing some summer stock.
Oh.
And he was like, you know what? I'm kind of feeling this acting thing. He went on to attend Harvard, and it was there he performed with the renowned Hasty Pudding Club.
Hasty pudding? Is that like instant Jell-O?
It's not, but it's weird that you say Jell-O because that comes up later. We'll get there.
That's the best thing I've heard all day.
The Hasty Pudding Club is like this very elite group at Harvard. They have the Hasty Pudding Theatricals. It's kind of a huge deal.
Is it still around?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And Gaspar Jr. both wrote and starred in productions there. One of his co-stars was John Roosevelt, son of Franklin Roosevelt, who was the president of the United States at the time. Can you imagine just like doing plays with the president's kids?
I could not.
The Bacon family was good friends with the Prez, actually, so it wasn't unusual for Gaspar to hang out at the White House.
Oh, this is just getting crazy. Also, I feel like the plays that they wrote were probably about young white guys being misunderstood.
I don't think so.
Oh, really?
Yeah. His plays were, Gaspar's plays were very highly received.
Oh, wow.
They got a lot of acclaim.
Okay, well, then apologies.
It's a very prestigious club.
So they don't let you just do bullshit.
No. After graduating from Harvard in 1937, Gaspar trained as a pilot and did a lot of traveling abroad. He eventually became an Army Air Force cadet, but was released due to poor health. Every article that mentioned this just stated he was dropped from the Air Force because of health problems, but I never found what those health problems were, and his health never seemed to be an issue at any other point in his life.
That sounds like something shitty happened, and they just covered it up.
I kind of feel like maybe there was something else going on there. Given that he was one of the Boston elite, his parents expected him to follow the same path as his father, his grandfather, his uncle, and his brothers, becoming either a doctor or a lawyer or a congressman or some other position of power.
Or all three.
Or all three. Even though Gaspar did enjoy the privileged life he led and all that it afforded him, he never felt he could completely be himself among the conservative, aristocratic society he was born into. A society that held very high standards regarding character and duty.
Right.
A society that valued a strong family unit and rejected any kind of, quote, scandal, such as divorce. A society that definitely would not have been accepting of the fact that Gaspar Jr. was gay.
I suspected.
Did you?
Just a little bit.
And that's what's sad is that I don't think he ever told anyone in his family he was gay.
No. Well, of course he wouldn't. They're all horrible.
Exactly.
It's one of those things where, like, you repress it and it's just supposed to go away.
Right.
It never does. It comes back with a vengeance.
They might have had an inkling, but from what I can tell, he was not open with them about it.
I just imagine him like running around his house as a kid in like a little tutu, and his dad has like a glass of whiskey and is just like
shaking his head. So just imagine what his parents must have thought when he was like, guys, that whole acting thing I did while I was in school, yeah, I think I'm going to make a career out of that.
Good for him. I'm turning my opinion.
Okay.
I like him.
According to the New England Historical Society, Gaspar tried getting his career started in New York, but that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, you can't just straight go to New York.
You can't just be like, I'm here.
It's like that moment in, I think, isn't it Annie when she gets off the bus?
Maybe.
And she's like, 3 bags, $2, 1 me. And then there's like in 30 Rock, they make fun of that. Like this girl gets off the bus and goes up to Tina Fey and she's like, say, miss, where does a young prostitute get started in this city?
Amazing.
I'm going to do that next time I go to New York.
Please do. It was rumored that in order to earn some money, he worked as a male escort.
Oh, shit.
I don't know that that holds up anything or that holds any water because he came from money. He had a shit ton of money. So I don't think he needed to work as an escort. I think that was probably just a rumor someone made up, maybe to sell a story.
It sounds like it, yeah.
But it's been printed multiple times. So who knows?
That's really strange.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like that's some kind of character assassination.
Yeah, I think it feels like it. So I don't know if that's true. He did, however, work as an MC for a silent movie theater. So
that's
there was
cool.
that. Yeah. But with his acting career not really taking off in New York, he decided to head west. In 1939, he went to Los Angeles, and with the help of his Cape Cod acting buddies, Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart, who were already in LA, Gaspar scored some auditions and started making those connections.
Hey, there you go.
The most influential probably being producer/aviator Howard Hughes.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
That's amazing. This guy, well, I mean, coming from money.
He came from money. He had every privilege given to him.
That connection, those connections are like inherent.
Yes. Gaspar looked great on screen. He was tall. He was 6'2", had brown hair, green eyes.
Good looking.
He was an attractive guy. Howard Hughes signed him to an exclusive contract, and it's widely reported that in 1940, he wanted to cast Gaspar as Billy the Kid in his upcoming film, The Outlaw. However, the part went to Jack Butel. It was reported that Gaspar didn't test well. He was too clean cut to play Billy the Kid. However, there might have been another reason. ...
The gay thing?
No.
Suspense.
Just as people were starting to learn who he was, Gaspar did a really shitty thing that landed him in some legal trouble. In an article by crime reporter Peter Levins, on September 9th, 1939, 15-year-old newsboy Curtis Larson went to Gaspar's house to collect the $1 that was owed for the newspaper delivery. When Gaspar opened the door, he was wearing only the top part of his pajamas. The boy told police, quote, "He invited me upstairs to see his paintings. He said he was an artist at MGM Studios and he wanted me to see his work." The boy followed him upstairs because he probably didn't know what else to do in that moment.
Yeah.
And he said that when they got upstairs, Bacon made an advance.
I mean, if I went up to someone's door and a hot guy with no pants on was like, "Come upstairs," I'd be like, "Let's do it!" And we're off.
Let's go. Oh, my God. The article this was reported in doesn't go into detail, probably because the boy was a minor.
That sucks. That's not good.
No.
That is not cool.
But from what I gather, I would guess Bacon probably exposed himself to him.
I'm sure.
Curtis, the boy, told him his uncle was waiting for him, and Gaspar immediately stopped what he was doing. But asked Curtis if he could come back later in the day.
No.
Thankfully, Curtis went to the police instead.
Good, as you should. I don't...
Yeah.
I understand at this time, like, it's difficult to find sexual partners, but...
Sure, but this is a minor.
This is a child.
Because Gaspar was in his 20s at this point.
Right, but still, like, that's too young.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Gaspar was arrested and agreed to a plea bargain. He admitted to the crime and told police he didn't know why he'd acted that way, and his sentence was suspended as long as he agreed to leave the state of California for at least 3 years.
That's crazy.
Isn't that weird?
What?
Yeah, it's like you can roam free, just not here.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
It's weird. However, according to Levin's article, Gaspar didn't go far. He left LA, but only went to Santa Barbara, which is just about 2 hours away.
So he was still in California.
Yes. So he technically wasn't supposed to be in California when Hughes was casting for The Outlaw in 1940. And if I were to speculate, I'd say that had something to do with him not getting the role.
Of course it would. You don't want that. I mean, because he would have probably made that would have probably been like a big time breakout role for him. And that's when all your shit gets aired.
Yeah. Howard Hughes is the one who decided the name Gaspar was not poppin'.
I disagree. I think it's poppin'.
I know, I do too. He was like, sir, that does not roll off the tongue. You're David now. So Gaspar became David.
Boo. Don't stifle people's names. Beautiful names.
Beautiful names. It's widely speculated that Howard and David had a sexual relationship.
Really?
Although
was Howard Hughes like...
Well, he's known as a womanizer.
Right.
There are a lot of rumors that he did have relationships with men as well, but it's not verified.
Not, okay.
So
Maybe
we don't
he was
know.
Bisexual.
We don't know. They did stay close. David was under contract with Howard and acted in bit parts for him here and there.
Well, that's something, at least.
Sure. David returned to California, a.k.a. drove down the coast for 2 hours, when he was cast in the film 10 Gentlemen from West Point in 1942. He was just shy of completing his 3-year absence, and I think he thought, well, that's close enough.
Also, I'm just realizing that maybe there was something that happened when he got, sick in the Army. Now that you're telling me about the sexuality thing.
That's what I think it was.
I mean, I'd go berserk around all those dudes. So I get it, Gaspar.
I do think that had something to do with it.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take that so far back, but my wheels were turning.
Yes.
Continue.
It's unclear when Howard Hughes changed Gaspar's name to David. If it was after his arrest, I could see that being a way for David to return to L.A. under the radar.
Yes.
A little bit.
100%. Oh, yeah, because name change back then, you could probably just do it.
Yeah. Even though David's role in 10 Gentlemen from West Point was a small one, everyone on set loved him. The film starred George Montgomery and Maureen O'Hara, who referred to David as our star, and director Henry Hathaway said he was terrific. In addition to the name change, Howard Hughes and David agreed that David needed to find a wife, and quickly.
Boo.
Hollywood was super homophobic,
Boo.
and David knew that if it ever came out publicly that he was gay, he would be discriminated against and his career would be over. He met Greta Keller, a singer and actress originally from Austria. Her career was going pretty well in 1942. She was living in LA.
I've never heard of Greta Keller.
She is stunning.
Really?
Mm-hmm. She was living in LA, performing at the Pasadena Playhouse. She'd actually been married once before, but the guy turned out to be an alcoholic, so that didn't last.
Sorry, Greta.
On September 23rd, 1942, Hedda Hopper, a gossip columnist for the LA Times, wrote that David Bacon and Greta Keller were engaged. So that happened fast. David got back into town after his exile. He did a film, met Greta, got engaged. He was 28 at the time, and she was 39, 11 years his senior.
Sure.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's on point that you said perfect. She said they were a perfect match because, as she would later state, she too was gay.
That's what I mean, she's an older lesbian. Mm-hmm. He's a young gay guy. Like, of course. That's
of course
perfect match.
Yes.
Beards.
Yep, that's what she said. And she didn't want that getting out publicly for fear of hurting her career.
Sure. I mean, but that's awful. People should be themselves.
It's horrible. Exactly. But again, this is the 1940s.
No, stupid 40s.
Stupid
wars. It was a bad decade.
It was. Shortly after they married, they got pregnant in the spring of 1943. Yep.
Like for real?
The old-fashioned way, for real. They were really going for the whole traditional family thing.
That must have been an awkward night.
Right? They lived at 8444 Magnolia Drive in a mansion on Lookout Mountain, which is in the Hollywood Hills, just off Laurel Canyon Boulevard.
I want to like see the hills.
Oh, because you've never been to LA.
I've never been.
Oh my God, we need to do a Horrorwood trip, like a co-host trip to
From
LA.
the top of a hill.
and just like do an episode at the mansion.
I would love that. Out front.
Yes, at the gate because they won't let us in.
Of course.
David named the house Castle Hill. That's another way that you know you're rich is when you can name your home.
I want to name my apartment. I'm going to call my apartment the litter box. The electric litter box.
The electric litter box. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It smells like one, that's for sure.
Gross. David continued acting in bit parts here and there, but his biggest break came when he was cast as Bob Barton in The Masked Marvel. The Masked Marvel was a movie in 12 chapters, kind of like a miniseries.
Wow.
But it would play at movie theaters, and each week at the theater would be a new chapter.
Oh.
It's pretty problematic. Oh. It's wartime propaganda. Very typical of that era.
Of course.
It's about a superhero trying to capture a man that they say is a Japanese spy. The man who plays the Japanese character was a white dude named Johnny. It's Hollywood in the 40s. It was all a mess. But David was excited when he was cast because he felt this could really kickstart his career.
Sure.
Never mind the fact that he wasn't the first choice or the second or the third or the fourth actor to be cast in the role. 4 men before David had all attempted the role but were injured during filming and unable to continue.
Oh, no. How were they injured?
Various ways. I'm not sure what it was, but it was a very active role.
Mm-hmm.
People started saying the role of Bob Barton must be cursed. But this didn't bother David. He was happy for the acting work. And at the end of the series, it's revealed that his character is the Masked Marvel. So, he's got the title role. That's kind of a big deal. I don't
know why I said it like that.
I liked it. Title
role. That's amazing. Good for David / Gaspar.
At one point during the shoot, there was a scene involving several of the actors where an intense fight breaks out. And somehow all the actors in the scene got hurt except for David. So as he left the set that night, he joked, "I better look out or something might happen to me. I'll probably get hurt going home in my car tonight."
And then he was hit by a bus.
He was not hit by a bus.
Just every time you say, "I better be careful," boom. Go ahead, sorry.
But it turns out he was off by just a few weeks.
Shit.
But we'll get there. David had hoped The Masked Marvel would be something he could be proud of.
Yeah.
He was playing the title character, but he was actually humiliated by it.
How come?
Well, he found the role to be embarrassing, partly, I think, because when he was the Masked Marvel, it was actually stuntman Tom Steele performing in all the scenes while wearing a mask, not David.
Not him.
And however, Tom was not credited for his work. And the Masked Marvel's voice was neither David's or Tom Steele's. It was radio actor Gain Whitman, who also went uncredited.
Wow. Just like Mercedes.
Yeah, Mercedes McCambridge. So it was him when he was Bob Barton, obviously, but I don't think there was a whole lot there. The Masked Marvel was what was, the big draw, and that wasn't even him.
Right. It was like an amalgamation of a bunch of other actors.
Yeah. The only time David's character is known to be the Masked Marvel is in the very last scene when he takes off the mask, and it's pretty anticlimactic. So it was just kind of like a letdown for David. The movie was released in the U.S. on November 6, 1943, but David didn't see it in the theaters because by then he was already dead.
Man.
On Friday evening, September 10th, 1943, David and his wife Greta hosted a little soiree at their mansion. Super cash, just 150 of their closest friends.
Oh, just 150.
Just 150.
Yeah, just a small gathering.
Yeah. They had a little cocktail hour and then I guess kicked 100 people out because they then had a sit-down dinner for just 50 of their friends.
That doesn't make sense.
I don't know if they were just like, we don't have enough food for everybody, so you in the living room, you in the hallway, y'all all have to go.
Out.
Greta cooked the meal. She was known to be an excellent chef.
Oh, yum.
She made a traditional Viennese dish of Bauschel. Bauschel, I think that's how you say it, with bread dumplings. Bauschel is a stew made with the parts of the animal you wouldn't typically eat.
Sure.
Like the heart and the lungs, usually from a calf, but they use other animals sometimes. It's considered a classic dish from her native Austria, and it's pretty time-consuming to make. And she made this for 50 people, and I only bring it up because she was in her second trimester by this point and was having a really difficult pregnancy. She's 40 years old now. It's 1943. Medical care wasn't exactly what it is today. And I can just imagine the aroma coming from those ingredients wasn't the most pleasant.
Ugh, organ meat. What are those called? Like when they come in the turkey?
The entrails? Is that it?
Giblets?
Gizzard? Oh.
Giblets?
Giblets?
I don't know.
Turkey giblets?
Turkey giblets? Is that? I don't know.
Someone will tell us.
Yes.
David, to show his appreciation for all her hard work, said, I got you, girl. I'll make you dinner tomorrow night.
Good for him.
So Saturday evening, he made Greta an omelet and Jell-O.
I mean, he could have, whatever. That's not, I mean, yum.
Sure.
Eggs are good. Depends on the flavor of Jell-O.
Well, later in life, when she was working on her biography, Greta wrote, he loved Jell-O and I hated it, but I always had to eat it anyway. So I don't think it mattered what flavor to her.
Oh.
She spends hours while preggers, like making this laborious
Gorgeous
ragu.
stew. And he
he's
probably
like,
takes 10 minutes.
He's
to
like,
make
here's
an
your
omelet
chilled
and
gelatin.
Oh, Kate, one time I used Jell-O in the 4th grade to make a model of a cell.
Like
a
a
human cell.
Oh.
Like I made, it was green Jell-O, and then for the nucleus it was like the inside of a kiwi, and then I made like a Jell-O dessert cell.
It sounds delicious.
Yes, it was. I got honorable mention.
Oh, hey.
Which isn't a place. I'm not mad.
But you don't have any hard
No,
feelings
not
about
at
it.
all.
So the next morning, Sunday, September 12th, it was really hot and muggy. The high in LA that day was 92 degrees.
Like today. That's
like
what
today.
It's outside.
It's so gross. So over breakfast, David suggested they go swimming. They had a friend, actress Geraldine Spreckles, who lived in
that name.
I do too. The names in this episode are on point.
Yes. I want a T-shirt with all of them on it.
It's like the Hamilton shirt
Yeah,
where it's like
whatever, like Gaspar and Spreckles and Greta
and Priscilla. Geraldine lived in a beach house in Santa Monica, and they would often go to her place to hang out. They'd take their 3 Cocker Spaniels with them, and they make a day of it. But Greta had been having a difficult pregnancy. Plus, she'd hosted this huge weekend for friends. She was like, let me just check with the doctor, see if he thinks it's okay for me to go swimming. So she phones her doctor, and he told her, girl, no. You need to stay home and rest.
Right.
So Greta told David, I'd better stay here. I need to write some letters anyway. I think I'll take the afternoon to catch up on my correspondence. So David stayed with her as she lay in bed. But after a while, she drifted off to sleep, and when she woke up, David was gone. She never saw him alive again.
No.
According to neighbors, David had left home at about 2 p.m., though Greta initially said noon.
Okay.
Around 5 p.m., witnesses saw him driving his burgundy British sports car erratically on Washington Boulevard in Venice. The car was all over the road.
I was going to say erratically, like in what way?
So
it was just swerving around.
Yeah, it's swerving around. He almost crashed into a telephone pole before jumping the curb. Eventually, he came to a stop in a bean field at Washington Boulevard and Thatcher Avenue. Back then, this was a pretty rural area.
Oh, okay.
David then got out of the car. He was wearing swim trunks or denim shorts. I've seen it printed as both.
Both ways.
But wasn't wearing anything else. And he was covered in blood.
What the fuck?
He stumbled about 15 feet before collapsing between the beanstalks.
Oh my God.
A resident named Wayne Powell witnessed the crash from his home, and he ran over to David.
Yeah.
Powell said David was kicking and squirming, so he told him, just lie still, save your energy. Yeah. And David could barely speak, but he managed to whisper, help me, please help me. Powell asked him, who did this to you? But David wasn't able to answer. Powell looked in David's car and found a sweater in the back seat, so he grabbed that and put it under David's head to try and make him more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And this sweater would be the subject of a lot of speculation later on. Approximately 10 minutes after the crash, David Bacon was dead from a single stab wound in the back. LAPD detectives Lloyd Hurst and Harry Fremont were assigned to the case, and they quickly ruled out robbery as a motive because David was wearing 2 valuable rings at the time of his death.
And they weren't taken.
They were not taken, and his wallet was still on him, and it contained $13, which is the equivalent of about $230 today.
Whoa.
Dr. Frank Webb was the medical examiner, and he said the stab wound was between 5.5 to 6 inches deep. Yeah. It had struck the lower part of the pericardium, which is the sac that surrounds the heart. When the pericardium is punctured, it causes excess blood or other bodily fluids to fill up the cavity around the heart, and it creates this pressure buildup. When this happens, less and less blood is able to reach the heart, which can lead to organ failure. The person will go into shock. And in David's case, the buildup of fluid caused his left lung to hemorrhage. A person could survive this kind of injury if they were able to receive treatment right away.
Right away, yeah.
Dr. Webb said it was possible David lived as long as 20 minutes after being stabbed. So this was not a quick and painless death.
This was a slow and painful 20 minutes.
Upon hearing the news that David had died, Greta collapsed to the ground and her health took a downward turn.
No.
However, she did everything in her power to help the investigation.
Okay.
At first, detectives Hurst and Fremont believed David was killed by a hitchhiker because several people close to David stated he would often give strangers a ride to wherever they needed to go. However, as they looked further into the case, they began to uncover details about David's life that suggested maybe there was more going on here than meets the eye. Inside David's wallet, in addition to the $13, was a key. This key was not to the home he shared with Greta, but to a bungalow he had rented just a couple of weeks before his death.
A sex bungalow.
I thought it was a sex bungalow too, but not so sure.
Okay.
It was a small studio apartment located at 8481 West Kirkwood Drive, just down the hill and less than half a mile from his home on Magnolia.
Okay.
According to an article by Wendy Grossman Cantor in Entertainment Weekly, Greta told investigators that she was aware of the apartment and had helped David pick it out. She said it was for a carpenter of theirs. They had placed an ad in the paper looking for someone to do some work on their home. They wanted to expand it in exchange for a place to stay. But in the LA Daily Mirror, author Larry Harnish writes that Greta told investigators the apartment was for a gardener they were hiring. Dr. Charles Hendricks, the owner of the bungalow, said David had told him the apartment was for a friend. I think all of these accounts could be true, and I'll get to why in a second.
To me, I'm thinking it's bullshit, and I'm thinking that they had that second apartment so that they could both go and have their trysts with the people they were actually attracted to.
That is a definite possibility. I'm not ruling that out.
Sure.
When investigators examined this apartment, they found 3 empty purses in a drawer in the bedroom, along with the torn sleeve of a woman's blouse. Several women's cigarette holders were also found, along with coffee, spaghetti, a few books, and some dirty dishes.
Sounds like my kitchen.
There were also some towels and linens, along with a few personal effects, but it's not stated anywhere what those were. Overall, the apartment was pretty bare, and detectives were like, does anyone live here? They were able to track down Henry Frazee. He was a radio producer in between jobs, and he told detectives he'd found the apartment through an ad, that he and David had struck a deal where he would work several hours a day and in return have that place to live. When he moved in, he had several friends help him. One was a woman who said she had left her cigarette holders there. Another was a guy who had loaned books to Frazee, the books that had been found there. So that accounts for those things. But Frazee only stayed at the apartment for 4 days because he was offered another job, like a pretty good job, and moved out. So I think Freebie had perhaps signed on as a carpenter, like Greta had mentioned in the one account where they wanted to expand their house. September 10th, 2 days before David was murdered, Dr. Hendricks, the building owner, noticed a light on at the apartment, so he stopped by because David owed him $20 on the rent. David answered the door, but he wasn't alone. There was another man there with him. Hendricks told police that this man was, and this is a direct quote, these are his words. He said the man was, quote, dark and slight, foreign looking, and his face was flushed like he was angry. He said, quote, the friend was rather red in the face, and I gather that they had been quarreling before I came in, although Bacon himself was quite calm. He described this man as being about 35 years old, approximately 5'8", around 140 pounds, and, quote, evidently an Austrian. Don't know where he got Austrian from, but that's how he described him. Hendricks said, quote, all the time I was there, he never spoke a word, nor did Mr. Bacon introduce me to him. Mr. Bacon did not have the rent money, but said he would put it in my mailbox Saturday, which he did. Police were able to track down the man Hendricks had seen with David when they found his phone number among David's belongings. The man was 20-year-old Glenn Irwin Sham, so not 35, and police did arrest him. When he was questioned, he stated he had answered an ad for a gardener. He scheduled a meeting with David. David showed him the apartment and then took him back to Hollywood. I assume that's where he lived. Glenn told police that David ended up canceling the deal. No explanation was given as to why. So looking at this, I think it's possible that Glenn thought he had a job. Then when David canceled it, Glenn confronted him at the apartment, which is why he appeared angry when Dr. Hendricks came by for the rent.
Right.
Police checked out Glenn's story. He was a Navy deserter, he was married, and he had a solid alibi for the day of the murder. He had been with his wife all day, and there are witnesses to corroborate this.
Okay.
So he was released.
Yeah, forensic files in me is always like, if the spouse gives an alibi in just the spouse, it's kind of like, how much can you actually trust that?
Exactly.
But if other people saw them together.
They say there were several witnesses who saw them together.
Fair enough.
Larry Harness from LA Daily Mirror does bring up an interesting question. He says, why did Glenn answer an ad for work that included living quarters when he was living with his wife?
House.
And that is weird. The only thing I could think was maybe he was planning on moving into the apartment with his wife because they were young. He was 20, she was 21. They probably wanted to save money. They were still newlyweds. They had just gotten married in May of that year. So I could see that being the case. They were like, hey, this is a free place for us to live. So earlier when I said I could see all those scenarios being true of who they were renting this bungalow to, a carpenter, a gardener, a friend, I think it's very possible the ad in the paper could have been for a handyman or general contractor, someone they were just looking to work on several projects at the home, including an expansion, including landscaping.
Had any work been done prior to...
No.
Okay.
And I could also see David not wanting to go into huge detail with Hendricks about all of that. So he could have just said, I'm renting it for a friend. Mm-hmm. I could see that. Like that, to me, that's plausible.
I hear you. It's all a little weird to me.
It is weird.
It feels off.
It does feel off. Greta had told investigators that on the morning of his death, David had wanted the two of them to go swimming at their friend Geraldine Spreckle's house.
Spreckle.
But when police talked to Geraldine, she said David had never been there on that day. David also left their 3 Cocker Spaniels at home, and Greta said he always took the dogs with him when he was going swimming. So to Greta, it's not sounding like David went swimming. But if you'll remember, he was wearing only swim trunks when he was found, and his crash occurred in Venice, not far from Venice Beach.
Right.
But Greta was like, David never goes to Venice. He doesn't like it. He won't even let me go there, and he wouldn't even agree to go with me. I don't know how he ended up there. She was shocked to learn that he was found in Venice. So it came as quite as a surprise when the detectives told her they'd found multiple people, 4 in all, who all stated David frequented this one particular area of Venice Beach. Sometimes he had his dogs with him, but not always. Sometimes he was alone. And Greta's like, Huh. Well, he did keep a secret diary written in code that he forbade me from looking at. Maybe there's something in there.
Right.
And
Sounds like David was cruising at Venice Beach.
And Hearst and Fremont were like, excuse me? She's like, yeah, he wrote in that thing religiously. He kept it in his bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
In his bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So sounds like they slept in separate bedrooms, which would make perfect sense.
That makes sense given their situation.
Yeah. They did find the diary, and an article in Hearst's International News Services stated that they turned it over to cipher experts in the hopes they could decode it and find clues regarding David's killer, but nothing ever came of it.
I wonder what the code was.
I know.
It's
never been determined.
It's like Pig Latin, and they're like, we don't understand this.
Greta also showed the detectives her and David's personal phone book and worked with them to eliminate as many people as they could, hoping that maybe whoever was left might give them some clues.
Mm-hmm.
But like the diary, the phone book had all these cryptic drawings and notes, so that didn't really help. Days after David's death, his cousin was at the home on Magnolia Drive going through things, just trying to find any clues as to why someone might have wanted to kill him. And the cousin found a will that David had written in pencil just 3 months prior. In it, he left everything to Greta. The will reads, I, David G. Bacon, sometimes known as Gaspar Bacon Jr., being of sound mind and body, leave all that I have in worldly goods to my wife, Greta Keller Bacon, including all my holdings in the J. Pierpont Morgan Company, the Guarantee Trust Company, Seaman's Institute of Boston, First National Bank of Boston, all cash in the Bank of America, all real estate, and my house in Woods Hole, Massachusetts.
Oh, shit.
So that's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot. But I mean, Greta was also wealthy, right?
She had money. She had a successful career.
Right.
Her career was more successful than David's.
Yeah. But David comes from money, so that's probably more than
I
we
think so. But the weird thing was, David never filed the will with his attorney. It was just written in pencil on a piece of paper.
I don't know. That's sketchy. So they found the will in his things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it his handwriting? Was it?
Presumably. I didn't see anything, because that was my question too. And I didn't see anything where they tested the handwriting.
Because it's weird to me, because this guy would know how to do a will and how to protect himself. He comes from money, right? And rich people are all about keeping their money safe.
Keeping that money safe.
Gotta keep it to myself. Down with the poor. Let them starve. But it's just weird to me that he would have a written will that's not, looked over by a lawyer, not official, if you want to call it.
Yeah, official. It was weird to a lot of people.
And they just, yeah.
So the cousin ended up filing it. The cousin that found it. Greta said David had written the will during the filming of The Masked Marvel. There was a scene where he had to jump off a second-story building. So the night before he filmed it, he wrote the will in case anything happened to him.
Oh, see, that makes sense to me. Because, I would think there would need to be some kind of reason for a will to come up.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a will recently when we were going through the COVID pandemic. When it first started, it was really fucking scary.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if something happens, I should have something in place.
Yeah. It's important.
Yeah. But no, I mean, that makes sense that there was something leading up to the writing of that. But again, still shady.
And also, he had a stuntman.
Oh, that's right.
So that was a question to me.
Who said that? Who said that it was that he wrote it because of doing the stunt?
Greta.
And isn't Greta Austrian?
She is.
And the guy that was at the apartment was also Austrian. That's probably a bit of a...
according to Dr. Hendricks,
sure.
We don't know.
We don't know because he didn't actually speak to him.
Exactly.
But they would have known when they arrested him, right?
Possibly, but that didn't come up in the questioning.
Okay, got it.
The whole thing about him being Austrian was just Dr. Hendricks' account.
Sure. I'm starting to lean toward Greta.
Well, let's keep talking.
Okay, sorry. I'm just putting my opinion out there.
Mm-hmm. Police wondered if that was the real reason for the will, this stunt, or if David suspected his life was in danger.
Right.
Shortly before he was murdered, the roof of his Cadillac convertible had been slashed with a knife. Greta told police that she could never get a straight story out of David about why this happened or who did it. One time he told her he was at the studio when it happened. Another time he told her he was in the car when someone knifed it. If I were Greta and David told me he was in the car when someone slashed the roof, my first question would be, so who did it? But she either didn't ask or David didn't tell her.
Come on, people. Let's talk to the people we're close with. Let's ask questions. Let's get answers. Let's look into things.
Yeah.
If we care about the well-being of someone else.
Yeah.
Are you okay, Kate? Has anything happened?
Thank you for asking, Kevin.
It might be scary or...
I'm doing well. And how about you? Are you doing well?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm like, except for that weird red cross that was painted on my front door the other night. I don't get that.
It was upside down.
It was upside down.
So strange.
Someone was screaming. I'm fine, though, Kate.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
After that incident, David traded in the convertible for a used Rolls-Royce and a small British Austin sports car, which is the car he was driving the day of his murder.
Well, it sounds like he wanted someone to not know what he was driving anymore.
Well, that's what police maybe thought.
Sure.
So let's talk about that car.
Okay.
When police examined it, they found the interior was soaked with blood.
Oh, God.
Blood was smeared on the upholstery. There was blood on the steering wheel, as well as bloodied handprints on the driver's side window.
Sure. Well, I mean, to be stabbed in that area of his heart, like, I'm
He
sure.
was stabbed in the back.
Well, no, I know, but like
it was gushing, to put it bluntly. The exterior of the car, however, did not have a drop of blood on it. A bathrobe was found on the driver's seat. It was soaked in blood. There is a picture of it, which I think I will post because it's from a news article. So it's in black and white and kind of grainy, so it's not as graphic as you might think.
Okay.
When police examined the bathrobe, they found that there was no hole where a knife had gone through, so they surmised David was sitting on the bathrobe as opposed to wearing it at the time he was stabbed. I just thought it was weird that he'd have a bathrobe to begin with.
Sure.
If he's just going to the beach.
I mean, where did that bathrobe come from?
We don't know.
it That makes me think of like where do you get bathrobes? Hotels
or maybe
spas?
Maybe. Who knows?
Bathhouse.
Mm-hmm. Police dusted for fingerprints inside the vehicle. Why are you giving me that look?
I don't know. I was being like inquisitive.
Oh, I liked that's your inquisitive face.
What's happening?
I liked. Remind me to take a picture of that later.
Yes.
Police dusted for fingerprints inside the vehicle. All belonged to David.
Fuck.
I couldn't find if they dusted for fingerprints outside of the vehicle, such as on the passenger side door. Every article just states that only David's fingerprints were found inside the car. Also found inside the car was a camera. Police had the film developed, and it contained just one picture. A photo of David standing on the beach, completely naked and smiling. If they dusted the camera for fingerprints, they didn't find anything. And that's a big if.
Well, I mean, I don't think cameras at that time did like their own flashes. You know what I mean? Or like, do you see what I'm trying to say? Like,
I don't.
You know how you can take a picture of yourself and set a timer and like go like put your camera down and go get in front of it and it takes the picture.
Oh, sure.
Like I don't think that technology was around then.
No, it was definitely taken by someone else.
Right. Sorry, that was a really long way.
I was like, where are you going? Where is this coming from? But
you know those timers?
But I don't know if they dusted the camera for fingerprints.
It sounds like they didn't, because why wouldn't you find prints?
Right.
I mean, cameras are very fingery.
They're very fingery.
You have to touch them lots. A lot.
The police also...
very stupid to say.
I liked it. The police also examined that sweater that Wayne Powell had found in the car and placed underneath David's head. Mm-hmm. It was a heavy navy blue crew neck sweater.
Nice.
Strands of blonde hair were found around the neck of the sweater. And they also found, quote, 3 little feathers, which led police to believe whoever owned it perhaps worked in a poultry market or on a farm.
Specific.
Very specific.
Or it's very much like the staircase and a hawk got him.
Uh-oh. Or he was on the beach and there are seagulls.
And those seagulls will stab.
I mean,
No,
I'm just
kidding.
saying that the feathers could have been from seagulls.
I know. You're out in wildlife and there are birds everywhere.
So who knows? But the police were like, poultry market.
So strange. These police, man.
We're talking LAPD in the 40s.
LAPD in the 40s. I told you the 40s is a shit time.
DNA evidence wasn't a thing yet, so
Right.
police couldn't test the strands of hair, but they were certain the sweater was not David's.
What color was David's hair? Brown?
Brown.
Okay.
Police Captain Thad Brown of the LAPD Homicide Bureau
Thad Brown.
told the Times, quote, "It is logical to assume that whoever stabbed Bacon departed so hastily he left his sweater behind. It certainly does not belong to Mr. Bacon. In fact, it is much too small."
Excuse you, sir.
I mean, it was several sizes smaller than
No, I
what
know, but
David wore.
let's not size shame. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
The Times described the sweater as one knitted specifically for men in the Navy or Merchant Marines, and detectives Hurst and Fremont went around to a bunch of civilian and military suppliers who all said the sweater was commercially produced in about 5 years old. The detectives later determined the sweater was the kind given to athletes at a Venice high school about 5 years prior, which would be 1938. And they
Venice
said
High School, so that's the area that he's in, right?
yes. And they said whoever wore it was likely around 140 pounds and 5 feet 8 inches tall. Glenn Irwin Sham would have been 15 years old in 1938, so in high school. And if you'll remember, he was described by Dr. Hendricks, the owner of that bungalow, as being around 140 pounds and 5 feet 8 inches tall.
And, okay.
But he had an alibi. He was with his wife all
No,
day.
I know he had an alibi, but okay, I'm going to say something that I don't want to speak too ill of David because I'm very sad that he passed away, but we know from previously in the story that he might have had some kind of penchant or attraction to younger males, right?
Yep.
And so the guy that he had hit on and got kicked out of California for was 15 at the time, right?
Yes.
So I'm just making a connection.
But at this time, Glenn is 20.
I know Glenn is 20, but he would have been 15 years before when that sweater was produced, right?
When the sweater was produced,
Right.
yes.
So if that was his and it fits his build at the time, I don't know. I'm just making a...
Yeah, no.
Okay, continue.
Several eyewitnesses came forward that said they had seen David driving before the crash.
Mm-hmm.
12-year-old Lorraine Smith, who lived on Harrison Street, which runs perpendicular to Washington Boulevard, said, quote, "I saw the little car wavering along the street. First it nosed into the curb on the south side of the street. Then it went diagonally across the street, over the north curb, and into the bean field." Her mom wouldn't let her go out to look because she thought the driver was probably drunk and didn't want Lorraine to get hurt. So Lorraine grabbed her telescope and looked out the window, and that's when she saw David stagger out of the car and her neighbor Wayne Powell run over to assist him. One article stated that Lorraine saw a man and a woman in the car with David when he was driving, but I only saw that in one article. I couldn't find a quote of her saying that in any paper.
Also, she's 12.
She's 12.
I wouldn't quote a 12-year-old.
The thing is, I don't know that she saw anyone in the car with him.
Right.
It could have been just...
It sounds like people wanting to make reports that
Yeah.
don't...
Wayne Powell never mentioned seeing a passenger or passengers
Right,
in
because
the
that
car.
guy, if Wayne Powell ran over as quickly as he did, if someone's got away,
Right.
someone would have seen something.
However, a third witness, a Mrs. B. Patterson, who lived at 2335 Washington Boulevard, said she passed that car just before it crashed and saw a man in a dark suit in the passenger seat.
The sweater.
According to an article by Frederick Othman in the United Press, quote, "She noticed them particularly," she said, "because the driver appeared to be naked. His companion, she reported, was dark clad. David was not wearing a shirt, so he would look naked to someone just passing by.
Yeah.
Donald Roberts, a gas station attendant who worked on Washington Boulevard about a half-mile west of the crash, told police he saw a man and a woman in the car with David. He said, quote, "I saw them pass at 4:30 p.m. Sunday, driving toward the beach, and return about 35 minutes later. The man was about 5 feet 4 inches and dark complected." How on earth can you determine a person's height when they are riding in a car past you? And how often do you really notice the people in the cars that drive past you?
I never look at those people unless they've made me angry.
Right. If this is just a person driving. I mean, granted, he did have a car that would stand out. It was a little sports car, maroon. But still, I don't know how often you're going to...
It's so weird to be like, there was nobody in the car. There were 1 people in the car. There was 2 people in the car.
Yeah.
Like,
And that one person was 5 feet 4.
And they were 5 feet 4 and they had this complexion and they spoke a different language.
I mean, it's just like, what? So I don't know that we can put a whole lot into Donald's account.
I don't feel comfortable doing that.
And again, police did not find any fingerprints other than David's inside the car. They also never found the knife. They searched the bean field, but nothing turned up. David's shorts were dry when police found him, so it didn't appear he'd ever gotten in the water, but there was sand on them. So it's safe to say he was at the beach. And they believe that picture found on the camera was taken by his killer just before he was killed. Police believe that based on where he was stabbed, David was struck without warning inside the car as he was leaning forward, either to close a door or to release a parking brake. But I don't think you have to lean that far to do either of those things. That just feels...
In a small car.
Yeah. Police stated the direction of the wound indicated, quote, that the knife was wielded by someone facing the actor. No blood was found outside the car, which led to the assumption that he was stabbed while sitting in it.
That doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't get in the car after he was stabbed.
Thank you. And because the ME said he could have lived up to 20 minutes after being stabbed, they thought it possible that he had driven his killer for some time before the killer escaped out of the car. If he was stabbed in the car while facing the killer and leaning over, it's possible he could have been engaged in a sexual act. I also think he could have been stabbed outside the car, hugging someone goodbye, and then maybe thought he could drive himself to a hospital. I also think it's entirely possible that detectives didn't necessarily get all the evidence. We don't know if they dusted the camera for fingerprints. I don't think they did. Or the outside of the car. I don't think they did.
No, I don't think so.
And they did admit to making a pretty big error. Police did not examine the body or test for forensic evidence before the body was embalmed. That's a crucial mistake because once the body is embalmed, those chemicals are going to fuck with everything.
Everything.
However...
Why didn't they... That is...
LAPD in the 1940s. However, they thought they'd gotten a huge break in the case when a 22-year-old hospital orderly named Blakely Clifford Patterson gave an interview stating he knew exactly who killed David.
Oh, shit.
Regarding the killer, Patterson told the Los Angeles Examiner, quote, "I have a feeling that if this man is still in Los Angeles, he'll get me too. That my days are numbered. He might kill me to silence me." Patterson had just recently moved to Hollywood and said he first met David at the beach, and the two became friends. One day they were hanging out, and David asked him to go with him to this hotel because he was meeting a man there. Patterson said when they got there, the man seemed to be pissed off at David for some reason. Then around 11 a.m. on September 12th, the day of his murder, David called Patterson in a panic and said that the man from the hotel was threatening him and had written him a letter demanding money. Patterson said, quote, he seemed puzzled and nervous and didn't know what to make of it. He said that David begged him to go with him to the beach where he was going to meet this guy, but Patterson told him he couldn't because he was working. It's a little odd that Patterson gave this interview to a newspaper rather than going to the police. So detectives were able to reach him and bring him in for an interview. And one of the first things they said was, describe your good friend David Bacon. And Patterson was like, He immediately broke down and admitted he lied about everything. He'd never even met David.
Oh, my God. This attention-seeking little cunt.
He was a wannabe actor from Minnesota who had been in L.A. for 2 months.
I like how you said that. From Minnesota.
And he said, quote, I thought I could get into the movies if I had my picture in the paper.
Dumbass.
Yeah. He was charged with making a false report, and Judge Eugene Fay sentenced him to 90 days in jail.
Good.
But that got reduced to 10 days as long as he agreed to leave California and go back to Minnesota.
California. Punish people.
It's
Punish
wild.
them.
That's so wild that like that was a common sentence. It's just like you just get exiled.
Get out of the state.
Then there was 23-year-old Charles R. Weil. He went to police and said, I know exactly who killed David Bacon.
Yeah.
Me.
Oh. Kate, this is very akin to a story that's coming up.
Oh. But when they questioned him, they didn't believe he had ever met David. He couldn't really provide details outside of what had been printed in the papers, so they let him go. 1 month later, Charles Weil was arrested for attacking a neighbor with a butcher knife in Santa Monica.
Oh, my God.
While he was in custody, he told an officer that he had killed David Bacon. So this is the second time that he is saying, I killed this dude. The morning after that, detectives questioned him, and he denied everything. He said he was drunk when he'd confessed, and he denied any involvement. So they cleared him in the case of David's murder. Shortly after his death, Greta changed her story.
What is happening? Kate.
I know, it's wild.
The next thing you're just going to be like, and then everybody said it didn't happen.
Oh, shit.
And then he wasn't actually stabbed.
And I have a special guest.
And you open the door.
David Bacon, come on in.
He's here with us today.
And he wants to tell his story
86.
himself. 109.
Yes.
Anyway.
I'm bad at math. All right on the spot.
Originally, Greta had said David had asked her to go swimming. She called the doctor. The doctor said she needed her rest.
Yes.
And she spent the afternoon writing letters before falling asleep. This time around, however, she told Captain Thad Brown and Detective Hurst that on the morning of September 12th, she and David had gotten into an argument. She stated that he was mad because, quote, he wanted to make love to her and she did not feel in the mood.
No.
So he left the house around 2 o'clock saying he was going to the beach for a swim.
Yeah, right. He was going to... Oh, Kate. This is messy. This is a mess.
It's all messy.
This is hard. It's like...
But she added that he didn't take the dogs. He always took the dogs when he was, quote, actually going swimming.
He wasn't going swimming.
No explanation was ever given to explain her two different stories.
Really? Nobody caught on to that?
Nope. Nobody was like, talk to us again? Nope.
I don't buy it.
Unfortunately, the shock and stress from her husband's death landed Greta in the hospital. And sadly, 1 week after his murder, she lost the baby.
That fucking sucks.
She never stopped trying to solve David's murder. She wrote in the notes for her biography, quote, I wanted to die. I kept thinking I should be dead, not him. She even hired a New York law firm to investigate the case, but they weren't able to solve it. Almost a decade after the murder, she told a reporter, quote, David was just a big, lovable kid. Nobody could help liking him. And how could anybody kill him? She did believe that Howard Hughes had something to do with it.
Nope.
She claimed David and Howard were in a romantic relationship and that David had actually believed it was his relationship with Howard, which was the reason that he wasn't cast as Billy the Kid. Greta also claimed that Howard was upset at how quickly she and David had gotten pregnant, despite him being the one who encouraged the marriage. And she thought that David was trying to end the relationship once and for all, and Howard sought revenge. I personally don't think Howard Hughes was involved.
No, this is all a, what is the word for it? Something to mask something else. It does not, I mean, she's shifting the blame and the idea of it around a lot.
Yeah, it's weird. And there's no real evidence to support that theory that Howard Hughes was involved.
I don't buy it for a second.
Greta never remarried, but she was in a relationship with a man named Wolfgang Nebmeyer from 1973 until her death in 1977. And he said that most of her relationships after David were with men who either looked like him or reminded her of him.
I thought she was a lesbian.
Right. Wolfgang said she was, quote, absolutely gaga about the man. I just found it interesting because, one, she only knew David for about a year before he was killed. And two, she was gay, as was David. So, what?
Okay. So, she was pregnant. Obviously, there was some kind of sexual connection or relationship there at some point.
I don't know that it was an attraction. I think they were. I think it was
they
a
just
facade.
wanted a kid.
I think they needed to make it look like they were the happy traditional family.
But, and I guess she would have to continue being with men to mask her being
because
gay.
her career continued.
Her career continued. Okay, so then that makes sense. But, okay. And I mean, it would make sense that all the guys would look like David because I'm sure they were like hot gay guys.
Possibly. David's family members never gave any interviews about his death. They didn't even talk about it with each other. Marcia Bacon Martin, who is the daughter of one of David's brothers, said that she never knew her uncle, who she refers to as Uncle Gappy. In the Entertainment Weekly article, which came out 4 years ago, Marcia said nobody talked about him. He was kind of an enigma. She said she didn't even know he had been murdered until she happened to Google him one day.
Oh,
I thought that was really sad.
That's
it makes
fucked
me
up.
wonder if his family didn't approve of him being gay. Although, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I'm not sure he ever told
I'm
them.
not sure they knew. I'm sure they weren't happy with him being in the arts or being an actor.
Right. I doubt they approved of him leaving, his prominent lifestyle to go to California.
Sounds like they just didn't give a fuck and, would cover anything up.
It sounds awful. This September will mark 80 years since his murder, and to this day, it has never been solved.
God damn it, Kate.
Sorry.
I
didn't want to tell you that at the beginning.
So it's a cold case.
Who do you
think
think did it?
And of course, there's no DNA because the cops.
I was like, who's Pops?
The Pops. That's what they call the PDs. Didn't do the right kind of investigation. Okay, so here's my thoughts.
Okay.
I don't know how much merit I give the guy who kept saying that he killed someone.
Sure.
But at the same time, when somebody says shit like that, you investigate it. And that wasn't investigated.
Right.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because that's some random guy that probably he could have picked up at the beach or whatever hotel that he went to do his business.
Possibly.
And, got stabbed because this guy maybe figured out who he was, or maybe there was some kind of I'm in love with you type situation, and David would not have wanted to have any kind of and also, Kate, maybe he had relationships going outside of his marriage to Greta.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Of course he did, but and we wouldn't know anything about that because they were secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds to me like he was seeing somebody and that person stabbed him to death.
I do feel like it feels like a crime of passion.
It does.
Nothing was taken. He was not robbed. It feels personal because you have to be close to the person to do that.
But also, it makes me think there was premeditation to this.
I mean, he
had a knife.
Yeah.
He had a knife. So someone was planning to kill him. And I don't like that Greta changes her story, and I don't like that she kind of flips it to make it seem like, she was really in love with him and had this really, really deep relationship, which I'm not saying is not possible.
Sure.
Absolutely you can have a relationship like that. But
I do feel like they could have had a very strong bond
Yes,
because
of
they were
course.
both going through a similar thing.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I could also see maybe she felt some sort of maternal something towards him.
Right, because there is an age difference there.
Yeah, and she even describes him as this, just lovable
big kid.
Yeah. So I could see if maybe she felt somehow responsible because she hadn't gone that day or what have you. But it is weird that her story changes. I also still feel like Glenn Irwin Sham is a strong contender. He could have gotten pissed.
I do too, Kate. I think that they had a relationship for a long time. And I think that was his sweater. He went to school in the area.
And he was in the Navy. And it was a sweater that they also said could have been manufactured for
people in the Navy.
Men in the Navy.
Yeah. He's a big contender.
And I could never find any of the so-called witnesses' stories that saw him with his wife.
Kate, and if you are letting someone take a naked picture of you at the beach, that's somebody that you've probably known
and
for a while
have a
and
relationship
are comfortable
with
and have a relationship with. I wouldn't just let anybody take nudies of me at the beach. I would ask someone I was close with.
Because you're a classy man.
Because I am going on an ocean cruise.
This is one side note that is not necessarily related to David, but there was another actor in The Masked Marvel named Rod Bacon, no relation to David, who was killed in 1948 because he fell at the studio and hit his head. It was initially reported as a homicide, but I think they just got confused as they were doing the reporting with the name Bacon and Masked Marvel. But he was only 33 when he died. So I just thought that's crazy. Yeah. A lot of actors on that show did not fare well.
And also the police mixing that up with and being.
I think it was reporters and not necessarily police
reporters
that mixed that up.
I just see the police being like, Bacon? You mean he was stabbed? Oh, 33, you say.
That voice.
That's awful. I'm sorry to that guy to have that accident. And, that's a really tragic story. It's really, in a lot of different ways, regardless of him having been a very privileged person, to endure that kind of lifestyle where you have to hide yourself, I'm sure is not fun. I know what that feels like. And it is stifling,
Yeah.
So I don't envy what they had to go through, both him and Greta. I think that relationship, I wish we knew more about it. I wish there was a better sense of it. Because I'm sure, Kate, I think she probably knows more than she's saying.
Possibly.
I don't, has she passed away?
She passed away in 1977.
Okay.
It's possible, like you were saying earlier, that the bungalow was a sex bungalow. And maybe...
I don't want to make it just about sex, but a place where they could go to have their other relationships that were outside of the house that they needed to maintain a specific image at.
Yes. Because it was very close to the house. They did
Right.
not have to go far to get to that bungalow.
Right.
And maybe she knew that Glenn was meeting with him there.
Maybe.
I mean, who knows? This is all speculation, obviously, because we don't have the answers.
Yeah.
But it does seem like Glenn Sham, in my opinion, is a strong contender.
I agree. I think he would probably be at the top of my list. It's a little weird to me to hire these handymen to come live in an apartment. I don't know.
I don't know that was that strange back then.
How far away was the bungalow from their mansion and from Venice Beach or from Venice?
The bungalow from the mansion, less than half a mile. It was just down the hill.
Very close by.
Yes. I mean, you could have walked there. From the bungalow to Venice Beach, let's see. One moment, please. Roughly 14 miles.
Oh, that's a chunk of...
I mean, yeah, it was a drive.
That's pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then there's the robe.
Yeah, we don't know where that came from.
We don't know where the robe came from. And I'm sure that area of the beach that he would go to was a cruising spot. It had to
It
be.
sounds like it.
That's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Schaum is probably the most likely, allegedly.
I think he's a strong suspect.
Suspect and contender. Or it was a rando.
It could have been. That's the thing.
Because he wouldn't have had a standing appointment because he was going to go to the beach that day.
Right.
And then because Greta couldn't go, he stayed home. So it makes me think he was...
But did he ever actually ask Greta to go? Or did they get in a fight that morning?
And he
said,
off.
I'm leaving.
Right. Because we don't know because of her story change.
Mm-hmm. That's the case of David Bacon / Gaspar Griswold.
Bacon Jr. Wow.
Wild.
Poor guy.
It's wild. And he was only 29.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I don't like any of it, Kate.
No, none of it's good.
Don't like any of it.
None of it. And there you have it.
Great job. That was a really good story. Thanks. I mean, I don't want to say like that's a good story because of the subject matter, but I mean, these cold cases are such an interesting thing, and it's too bad that there's nothing to go back to look at or any kind of like DNA or...
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well...
And that's that on that.
Okay.
So we'll see you... No, we won't. We'll talk to you next time, Patronians. Hope you liked it.
Yay, Patronians. Thank you for being here.
And, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Bye.